Welcome to Podcrushed. My co-hosts, Nava and Sophie, are here with me today.
Hello.
But they're not speaking. No, that's silly. That's stupid. Nava, you had something, didn't you?
Well, my sister has been visiting, and we went to Venice Beach. I'd never been before. And we walked by, they have like all the different tables. There was a table that said palm reader. And I have never gone to see a palm reader and never thought I would on Venice Beach. But on a lark, I was like, let's go talk to the palm reader. So sat down, fully expecting it to just be like a funny thing that my sister and I would remember after her trip. And the palm reader instantly started to like say things on my palm that were sensitive and true. Wow. My dad and sister were like hovering over me. And I was like, oh my God, I like really wanted them to leave so that she could like say more and I could like ask her questions, but I also didn't know how to tell my dad to leave. It was crazy. She gave me such an accurate reading. Some of it was really positive. Some of it was like not harmful, but it was like stuff that you need to change. And it was all true. So this like palm reader on Venice Beach has like some kind of ability to read the palm. And then it was
She's
so
stalking
good.
You.
It was so good that my dad was like, Jenna, you need to do it. And he paid for her to get her palm read. And her palm reading was extremely accurate.
Nava, do you have her name, her number, her booth number?
I know. Everyone wants to know this. I don't have any of her details. I'll be strolling the beaches of Venice to find her again, and then I'll let everyone know who she is.
You need to find one of those people who draws pictures in the courtroom.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to talk about Nava's palms anymore.
So trite.
No, I do find that very interesting, and I wish we could go on. I wish we could like maybe interview a palm reader, but we can't. We have to talk to celebrities like Kevin Bacon. We have Kevin Bacon. Very significantly, it's the strike, the SAG-AFTRA strike. So we didn't talk about a single one of his projects. And I can't name them right here. What we did is we delved right into his past, right into his childhood. And he did not disappoint. He reminded me a lot of Rob Lowe in that, specifically age 12, getting into life as a performer is exactly what he was doing. And it was a rich vein we were exploring the whole time. Let me tell you a little bit about what Kevin Bacon does. 6degrees.org connects people to resources and stories to make a positive impact in local communities. Their focus areas are young people, justice, and the environment. Kevin also has a podcast of the same name, 6 Degrees with Kevin Bacon, where he interviews his celebrity connections about their favorite nonprofits, highlighting the work of change makers in these organizations who make I don't want to say huge difference, but they make a difference, which is like hugely more than making no difference. We did have a lovely time with Mr. Bacon, and you will too. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome to Podcrushed. We're your hosts. I'm Penn.
I'm Nava.
And I'm Sophie.
And I think we could have been your middle school besties.
Trying to figure out how many degrees we are from Kevin Bacon.
All right, so we'll start it simply. By the time 12-year-old Kevin Bacon was who he was, becoming who he would be, like what was the lead up to that? What was your childhood like? Any of your family life at home that you can share?
I grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, right in the middle of Philly. The neighborhood is called Center City. My father was working for the city, and he was a city planner in Philadelphia, that they needed to raise their children in the middle of the city and not in the suburbs. Wow. And I'm the youngest of 6. There's a very large age gap between me and my next oldest sister. So my parents had a couple of girls right before World War II. My father went off to the Navy when they were little girls. And then a few years later, he had 3 in a row. And then 8 years later had me.
Wow.
And so I was a mistake, to say the least, although my mother sort of would deny that. But there's no way that you have 5 kids and they go, I got a good idea. Let's have another one.
Actually, my sister, my half-sister, we didn't grow up together, has like a huge age gap between the last one. She has 6 kids. And although it wasn't necessarily intended, it was like this joy That the way she tells it is that like they sort of needed the last one.
Well,
Were
definitely.
you needed?
I don't know if I was. I don't know if I was needed, but I definitely have been told, not to pat myself on the back, that it was a joy, and they were really excited about it.
That's
and we all went to public schools. Partly because I think my parents, again, felt strongly about the urban experience, but I think also because it just would have been too expensive. While my father was a very, very successful man in his field and very well known and influential, and wrote a book that was used as a textbook in design and architecture classes. He was not a wealthy man and never had any kind of a real notion of how to make money. And it was also not only that, it was also kind of looked down upon as the pursuit of something that lacked purity or artistic purity or something like that. My mother was raised as a little girl. Her parents were very wealthy. She was like a Park Avenue socialite. But that family pretty much squandered whatever money they had. And she also fundamentally turned her back on everything that she was raised with.
Wow.
She became devoted to the poor, specifically to poor children. And she was an activist, very involved with civil rights and with the Vietnam War, ending the Vietnam War. So I kind of grew up in that activist kind of point of view with an incredible audience, which was my brothers and sisters, who were so ready for me to perform for them the second I came out.
So that's interesting to hear. And so was it always music first and then acting, or was it just like performance in general?
It was performance in general, I think, although my parents weren't musicians, but they loved music. And my brother always talks about how they had kind of designed their house as a big stereo system in a funny kind of way. It was a real skinny row house, and they put the speakers at one end of the house and the controller at the other end. And so we're talking about either radio or turntable, obviously.
Yeah.
My brother and my sister, Hilda, was both very, very into what was called jug band, folk music, blues. They had bands when they were kids. So, if you grow up and you hear somebody playing an instrument or writing a song in the house or whatever, you kind of want to like jump onto that. But I think that it was mostly that any kind of creativity was put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
In our house.
So were your parents, it sounds like your parents, at least the way you've described them so far, were they artists too, or were they loved the arts?
They both were really excellent kind of illustrators, although they never chose to do it as a living. My father had been trained as an architect, although he never really chose to do that as a living. He was more a city planner. My mother was an artist when she was younger, but or at least loved to paint, but she kind of gave that up in order to work in housing projects and teach nursery school and stuff like that. So no, we used to say that my father was so tone deaf that when he'd sing us a lullaby, we pretend to be asleep. We wouldn't have to listen to it anymore. My mother, I think, played a little bit of mandolin, a little bit of mando. There was a mandolin lying around. I don't know. I can't really remember her playing. But if you could take a dance class, make a costume, draw a picture, build something, create something, whatever that would be, a play, a performance, write a song, that's the stuff that they were really, really big on. Not sports, not money making. So
Sounds so rich. I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like
Yeah.
lovely. I'm sure
Yeah.
there was all kinds of stuff or whatever, but
it was great in a lot of ways. But I think that a lot of us had very, very different kind of experiences. You know, I was just with three of my sisters recently, and we just got into a discussion about just about our mother and their point of view about who she was is so vastly different, you know. And I
Okay.
find that really interesting in big families, you know, because everybody had a different experience with that same person.
Yeah.
You know,
different parents.
different parents,
Different times.
and different times, and then also the age that you're at, the where you're at in the number of children, and so my experience was very different. But I had there's a lot of talk about, good art coming from tragedy and sadness, and there's no doubt that I had sadness and tragedy and both of those things, and danger and disappointment and loneliness. But I think all things considered, it was pretty good. I mean, if nothing else, they were very supportive of whatever I wanted to do as whatever kind of an artist I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And so, yes, music was important. I started writing songs when I was about 12.
Perfect for us.
Yeah.
Go there.
Yeah. The first song I wrote was "All the World Looks Lonely Through Lonely Eyes." And it was a song that I
Kevin.
wrote for Michael Jackson.
What?
And I'm going to do a little of it for you
Yes.
now.
Oh my God. I was like, oh my
as
God.
in,
And I brought a mandolin.
as in you wanted Michael Jackson to hear that song, right? Not
I
like he
wanted
didn't
to cut
ask
it,
you
yeah.
to.
Wow.
No. I wanted him to cut it. We were exactly the same age. And so, I had such a parallel kind of, I felt the parallel kind of thing
Yeah.
with him.
I've heard him say that about
Yeah,
you.
I don't think so. No, big family, and I wanted to be a pop star.
Yeah.
And so, but at that point, I didn't play an instrument. So my brother, who was always very supportive of me as a musician, even though I was just kind of a punk kid, I would sing him the songs that I wrote. And the melodies and the words, and he would figure out the changes. He would figure out like how to play it on the guitar or whatever. And so, I really was driven at that time, unlike my parents, where I kind of veered off was that I really wanted to be super famous. I really wanted a lot of money. And I really wanted girls. And I would do anything to get that. and I didn't really care if it was being an actor or being a musician.
Interesting.
And a lot of the people that I was aspiring to were kind of both. The Monkees, even the Beatles, kind of acted in things.
Totally, they did, yeah.
Bobby Sherman and David Cassidy, the Partridge Family, these were the Jacksons. These were people that it didn't really matter if it was acting or music or whatever. That was all kind of one thing in my head, which was pop stardom. So when I actually picked up a guitar, probably around that time my brother got me a guitar, I was like, shit, this is hard. This hurts my fingers.
It's so hard at the beginning. It really
Your
is
fingers
so
get all
hard.
callous.
You're a guitar player.
I am. And then Nava, by
No,
the way,
I'm
how is that
learning.
going?
I'm learning. I'm not a guitar player at
Well,
all.
but you're learning, which is the
Yeah.
hardest part. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so hard at the beginning.
It's really hard. It hurts so much.
Yeah.
Just quick aside. I had this incredible experience the other night of singing with Billy Joel at the Garden.
Yeah.
And I was backstage with my wife. And my wife, when she's 50, I got her a ukulele. And she'd never played an instrument in her life. And she loves it. And it's she's just, she really, just kind of took to it. And she has so much fun with it. And recently, the song that she's been playing is this Billy Joel song called Vienna. I don't know if you know it. It's a great song. And it's hard. It's a hard song. It's got all these bizarre changes in it and stuff. And this is the one that she has chosen, to like work out on the ukulele. And I had to embarrass her in front of Billy and say, Kira's been learning Vienna on the ukulele. He's like, on the ukulele?
Yeah, that's such like hard changes on a ukulele.
Yeah.
I've never heard those.
Exactly. He's like, can you even play like a G sharp minor on a ukulele? Is that even a possibility? Then he goes, let me see your fingers.
Oh, wow.
He wanted to see if she had been practicing so much that she has,
the
calluses, which you don't really get from a ukulele, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I when I started really playing the guitar, I realized a couple of things. I think even if it wasn't like an aha moment, I think I realized that I didn't want to work quite that hard for my dream of pop stardom. I'd rather have it come a little bit easier, so I decided to try acting.
And so at that point, was it really 12 or
12,
did that happen at 15? Okay.
No, 12,
Okay.
yeah. I got into, my mother encouraged it. I think she encouraged it partly because she knew that my brother was already having a life in music and maybe I should do something different. But maybe I knew that, or I don't know. But I can tell you that the drive was to, be famous. But when I got into the acting class, I went, oh, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as a kid, I just loved it.
Yeah.
I just loved it.
I had the same experience at 12.
You were in
before
acting
that.
class at 12?
A class I might have done a little bit earlier, but I
Wow.
moved to LA when I was 12.
Wow.
So I know at least that at that age, not knowing what you're getting into, but knowing it's like, what, this is so, I wouldn't have used this word, but it's so fulfilling,
Fulfilling,
and
yeah.
rewarding, enriching. It just kind of opens the world up to you.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
As a little boy in a tough town, trying to be tough and trying to, just kind of like navigate those streets and the schoolyard, and all of a sudden in an acting class, I didn't have to do that.
You get in touch with your feelings, really, in a way.
Yeah, which was not something that you're drawn to as a 12-year-old
boy.
Yeah,
of course.
You know what I mean?
Anywhere, but
Anywhere.
it sounds like maybe especially where you were.
Yeah, it was not a thing for a 12-year-old boy. So, to get in there and, whatever you do when you starting whatever, stretching or, making noises or, pretending you're a monkey or, whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's like, wow, this is really, without knowing the word, as you said, fulfilling. I didn't know the word therapeutic, but it was therapeutic for me.
Definitely.
I've gotten such an interesting picture of your parents from what you've told us. And even just the first thing you said, which was that your dad was a city planner, he worked for the city. And so they were adamant that they would raise you all in the city, like 6 kids. I think that to be so committed to like a value is quite rare. They're very values-driven people. And I wonder, sometimes as a kid, I think you can go either way. Like you can become really interested in what your parents are, or you can sort of not be. And I wonder what that was like for you at that age, like around 12. Did you feel that rubbed off on you, or was it something you pushed back on?
I think maybe the fundamental piece of, being open to other people's opinions and feeling a sense of compassion was there.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of it, doing anything for society.
You want to be famous.
I want to be famous. I want to do for me. I was
Yeah.
like, I had the hunger in the belly and the eye on the prize, and pretty young, ready to go. I remember high school. I say that, but I was also, getting high and, experimenting with all kinds of things that you
do when you're famous.
Yeah.
You're like, I gotta practice.
I don't see
got it out
any
of my
kind of
system.
opposition here.
Yeah, I got him out of the system before I turned into a teenager. I mean, I honestly, I was so. It's not like I was waking up every day and only trying to get to an audition. There was I did a lot of that, but I was also hanging out with my friends and falling in and out of love like twice a week and all that kind of stuff. But I definitely wasn't thinking about the world or politics or any of that. I was trying to get out of high school so I could get out of town.
Yeah.
Kevin, when did dancing become part of the picture for you?
I always liked to dance. I was never afraid. A lot of times you get this, thing with boys, 12, 13, 14-year-old boys don't get on the floor. I would get on the floor in a heartbeat. I loved it. I just did that kind of dancing, especially slow dancing. And I remember how to dance, every time, we had this teacher, he'd go running over to the record player and, pull off, whatever it was, Earth, Wind, and Fire, or, the stylistics. And then someone else would run back in and slap another slow record on. And he'd go over there and yank the slow record off. I was totally into it. But I didn't, when I did the dance movie, I was not a dancer. I wasn't trained as a dancer. It was nothing that had anything to do with, I didn't even really, if I'm being honest, I didn't even really understand that it was a dance movie.
Wow.
I thought it was just a movie, and then like where they would indicate that there was dancing, I would just get up and just do my I was like, because they said something about a choreographer. I said, you don't really need a choreographer. I'll just get up and dance. That's not a big deal. Just play the record for me, and I'll jump around.
Wow.
So it wasn't I was definitely not trained by any stretch of the imagination.
When you had your first sort of encounter with fame, how was that? As someone who was like longing for it, how did it feel?
Well, I can tell you that. So fame, the first time I ever really got a little taste of fame was when I was on soap operas. I started out on a couple of soap operas here in Manhattan. And that was a weird thing because when you're on soap operas, they think of you as the character. I was Tim the teenage alcoholic. In fact, I was on this show, and they had this. In those days, I don't know if it's still the same, but in those days, the cast was never allowed to communicate with the person that was writing the scripts. Somehow, the producers thought that this would be a terrible, terrible idea. that they would start asking, I don't know, they just were really, really scared about it. And we happened to be at some kind of a retreat, and the creator of the show that I was on was there. And we had this sidebar where he said, is there anything you've ever, wanted to play? And I said, well, either a young man having an affair with an older woman,
Wow,
or a teenage alcoholic. Now, these are two things that were probably, important in my life at that time. So they were just off the top of my head.
yeah.
And sure enough, like literally like the next week, the pressure builds on Tim, and he reaches in the cabinet and pours himself a scotch and takes a drink. And I was like, bingo. The other one never panned out, unfortunately, but I became Tim the teenage alcoholic. And, the thing was that people would come up to me and say, Tim, you need to listen to your aunt. She knows better than you, and you've got to stop drinking. And so because you're in the living room like every day.
Every day. You're in their stories. That's a real different kind of place.
So that was really my first taste of it. and how did I feel about it? I loved it.
And at this point, what, you're in New York?
I've moved to New York. I'm about
17, 18?
I moved to New York when I was 17, but I don't think I got on the soaps until I was about 19. Although I'll tell you an interesting fame-related story. Is I went out to do an incredibly famous movie that it's about. It was my very first movie. I had no agent. It was a movie about guys in a fraternity, in two rival fraternities, a comedy. And I came back to New York, and I had blown through all the money that I had, and I was working as a waiter, which I had been for years, and I had to ask for the night off from the restaurant where I was working, and my boss gave me the night off, and I went to the premiere, and I was like, wow, this is amazing, and I'm in a movie, and like my star is just going to shine so brightly. And I got to the premiere. I took the subway down. It was in Times Square, not too far from here. And there was a red rope, and I was on the other side of it. And I saw the rest of the cast who had arrived from L.A. getting out of a limousine and walking in with a ticket that I didn't have.
Wow.
And somebody saw me and pulled me underneath the rope and took pity on me and, got me a seat. And then I went down to the party, which was at the Village Gate. It was a big club here in New York at the time. And I couldn't get anybody to recognize me. My hair had grown. I had a really short haircut. I just looked different, and I didn't have a big part. And I literally went back to the restaurant and hung out with my friends in this restaurant where I worked. It was a bar, not really. I mean, they had food, but it was basically a bar. And, just kind of hung out with my friends. And so it was a great, humbling kind of moment of saying, don't get too wrapped up in your own legend. Don't start to believe that this is always going to be, beautiful.
Yeah.
This would be an ideal place to segue into the rest of your career, but we do want to just circle back real quick to, a few classic questions we ask about middle school adolescence.
Yeah, great.
You did mention at some point that you were in and out of love every like 2 weeks or something like this.
Yeah.
Then tell us
unsuccessfully, by the way.
Okay. So then tell us about that. I mean, what was like your first crush and your first heartbreak like?
Oh man, there were so many. I fell in love with a ballerina who had come in from out of town to study at the Pennsylvania Ballet, and she had a boyfriend, older boyfriend. A lot of times I was in love with someone who was my age, and they had a boyfriend who was 2 or 3 years older than them.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of like the way it is. But I'm a very, very romantic person when it came to crushes. Crushes were just very strong. And
How do you remember your first?
my very first crush, honestly, I came out with a crush.
Right.
I swear. I mean, I don't remember ever not feeling, something drawing me to some female. I just don't. I mean, young, like really young.
Yeah.
I can't really explain it, but it's just. But no, specifically. Not really, but I can bet that it was probably somebody that was older than me, and probably somebody that was completely unattainable. But a lot of times it would be, like any other little boy, I was scared to ask the question, to say, we had this thing where you had to say to somebody, "Do I stand a chance?" I remember the first time I ever said to a girl, "Do I stand a chance?" I was on the phone with her. I'd call her house all the time, and I would only see her at school because she didn't live in my neighborhood. But I'd call her house all the time, and we'd be on the phone for like a really long time, and talking about absolutely nothing, But I'd just be, and I finally got up the nerve to say, "Do I stand a chance?"
And it's those words literally, that was like,
Yeah, that's what you
Wow.
said. That's
Culturally
those were
at
the
that
thing
point.
that you said.
Yeah. Okay.
Like as I don't know what it would be now. I want to hook up with you.
Sure,
Or,
yeah.
I don't even know what it would be, or I want to,
I don't either.
But that
Honestly,
was the
I
thing.
like
Do I
that. It's
stay-
kind of humble. It's like,
Oh, yeah.
just tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So I finally worked up the nerve. I said, "Do I stand a chance?" And she said, "Me? Go out with you?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Me? Go out with little old you?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Okay."
Oh, that ended so much better than I thought. That's really sweet,
All the
actually.
language of the time. I love that little old you. Yeah.
And you were like, "Yeah, you didn't back up. You didn't back down." That's
Yeah.
really cute, Kevin. Okay, wait. I am gonna catapult.
My heart's actually pounding now just thinking about how nervous I was.
Dude, I was getting nervous.
It was right
Yeah.
up there with singing with Billy Joel.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wait, I do want to just fast forward to the future. I, in doing some prep, saw a really cute interview where Kira tells the story of how you guys went out, and she tells it as though you tricked her. And I would love to hear your version of how you and Kira first went out.
Tricked her. Okay. Well, I can tell you that when it came to Kira, Kira's got an interesting situation because I was not. Up until I moved to New York when I was 17, and up to 17, I really was pretty awkward with girls, in the way that I would, try to get with somebody, try to date someone or however stand a chance or whatever.
I love that
You want to
phrase.
call it. When I got to New York, things changed a lot, and it was the 70s in New York, like cinematically also, and also, culturally was known as the scariest, most dangerous time you could be here. And there was the Summer of Sam, and there was the blackout, and there was, all this crazy shit was going down. And right before the AIDS thing happened in the early 80s. But for me, even though I was, robbed a couple of times and robbed at gunpoint, it was still the greatest, most fun. Like I loved it, and I was, how can I put this? I figured out the right way to try to ask somebody out. I was more confident than I was as a teenager. I was cocky, and I was definitely just energized and doing my career and going to the clubs and working in the bars and doing all that kind of stuff. By the time I met Kira, I had been in a really, really long relationship, and I was completely out of practice when it came to relating to somebody that I was attracted to. I mean, hopeless. So I was really kind of stumbling around her, and what she perceives as trying to trick her was me just going, I just don't know how to. I just don't know how to do this anymore. Like, I really don't know what to do here. And so she didn't even know. I just kept saying, let's all go out to dinner. But what I really wanted to do was go out with her. But I just didn't have I don't know. I was too afraid to ask her out, basically.
Yeah.
And eventually I figured out that if she I was in the nice hotel and she was in the shitty hotel, that she could come over to my nice hotel. I could talk her into coming to the hotel, and I think she was going to get a massage at the hotel or something like that. And somehow I timed it so that we were coming out of the gym at the same time or something like that. And I said, oh, well, do you want to get some dinner? And, it was like that. So maybe it was a trick. I don't know.
It was very sweet. I think she said that you found out what time her massage was and made sure you were at the gym at the
That's
exact.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's very sweet.
Which, by the way, you think the hotel?
I know.
How did I find out?
Yeah.
I feel like nowadays maybe they might.
No, maybe
Tightened up.
not. Yeah, maybe not.
That's really sweet.
Okay, I do want to ask you, Kevin, about, I have to, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon phenomenon. How does it feel to you? Are you tired of talking about it?
And where did it come from?
Where did it come from? And have you ever known of an actor who's fallen outside of it?
Okay, to start with your last question, no.
Wow.
There's literally, I
Not
can
anybody.
guarantee you.
That's great.
I
That's
mean,
amazing.
but it was in the 90s, and there were 3 guys, college guys, or 3 or 4 guys from Albright University in Pennsylvania, and unbeknownst to me, they sort of came up with this idea that I could be connected to any actor in the acting universe by 6 degrees or less. So in other words, if I was in one movie, then that person was in somebody else, another movie, and then we were all acting, in this acting universe. I kind of heard about it from Howard Stern. Somebody told me that Howard had been talking about it. Then I went on to the Jon Stewart show. Jon Stewart had like a nighttime talk show at the time, and he brought those guys on as guests. People would come up to me and say, I'm hungover because I was playing your game. Other people would say to me, oh, my cousin invented that game about you. Whatever it happened to be, it was used as drinking games on college campuses. All this kind of stuff. And this is all, viral wasn't even a
this
word.
is like organic.
Yeah, this is like
Secretly
organic
viral.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was nothing to share it with. There was nothing. And, I was horrified, honestly. Because I thought that, and this is my own acting, insecurity, imposter syndrome. I thought that the joke of it was that the great actors could be connected to a loser actor like this. In other words, me. I'm a loser actor.
Okay.
And the greats, they were like, I was thinking, they were saying, well, can you believe he can be connected by Meryl Streep? By the way, I think I'd already worked with Meryl Streep. So it wasn't even like, it's just in my own head. And again, it's that thing of, when I became, for that moment, after the F movie, when I became a pop star, the last thing I wanted to be was a pop star.
Sure.
I had already moved into, I want to be, Dustin Hoffman or Meryl or John Casale or De Niro. Yeah. I want to work with Scorsese. I want to do Chekhov. I want to, what I mean? I was like so into what my idea of a serious actor was. And all of a sudden I was given this thing that was like completely not a serious actor. So I rejected it like full on, and really, I think in some ways, so just tried to kind of self-sabotage at least that piece of myself and my popularity. I was very, very uncomfortable with photo shoots and magazines and all these things that I had dreamed of as a kid. Everything that I had dreamed of gave me a tremendous amount of self-doubt, but also like anxiety and whatever. So when somebody was doing a pop culture game about you, I really was horrified by it. But I eventually learned to embrace it, and I realized that it wasn't really going away. I for a while, there was a couple of attempts to monetize it with an actual board game or a book, none of which sold. I couldn't make a dime off of it. And the reason was that it's not a thing. It's nothing you can hold. It's not a bottle of tequila or a pair of socks or a clothing line or makeup or whatever. It's just an idea. So I started to think about, at one point, starting a foundation when I was kind of moving out of just being focused on KB and starting to think a little bit more about the rest of the world. And 6degrees.org seemed like the best thing from a branding standpoint, you know. And when you take me out of it, I believe, and I think Ben and I have probably talked about this. I just think it's a beautiful concept, 6 Degrees, because it really is. If there's no Kevin Bacon involved, then it really is about the connectivity of people, the connectivity of us all riding this same, you know, ball, this planet, you know, being stewards of that, and of the actions and the things that we do having effect on everyone else, and the fact that we all climbed out of the same swamp. So, you know what I mean? I'm now really very happy and feel really good about just the idea of 6 degrees. I've learned to, you know, embrace it.
And when the oceans rise 6 degrees in temperature, you'll also have a whole new branding opportunity.
God, 6
It'll be
degrees,
reborn. You'll have a
not.
whole new dimension.
You know what? It's funny you say that, because Kira, who is was an avid environmentalist, from the time I met her when she was 21, she was talking about, you know,
The 2 degrees or the 4 degrees?
Yeah. We actually did a campaign where we were sitting there, you know, naked from the waist up and sweating and talking about 6 degrees and talking about climate change.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, it was probably, I don't know, 25 years ago or something like that.
Wow, so it's an old joke.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
really.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you knew.
Wow.
That's
All
an
right.
old joke.
Kevin, you
That's
also
sad.
have a podcast coming out with. Does it
I
also
do.
use that name? Do you want to tell us about sort of the mission of the podcast, where people can check it out, when it'll be out?
When my episode's coming out?
Yeah, exactly.
To your publicist?
He's saving
Yes,
yours for a holiday episode, a slow week
When,
Thanksgiving.
when it's like, it's either a rerun or it's Penn's episode.
Not at all. It's an excellent episode. You know, I wanted to figure out a way. We've had the foundation 6degrees.org. We've done all kinds of different things, drop-ins. A lot of it has had to do with highlighting people who are doing good work on the ground that aren't necessarily being recognized for that. That's number one. Number two, also the fact that celebrities, well-known people whose, you know, movies, television shows, music, sports, whatever, reality TV, that you appreciate, they don't just sit in ivory towers and make a whole boatload of money. Sometimes they have things that they care very deeply about, like Penn. And so it was an opportunity to do part of the show to just kind of shoot the breeze. A lot of these episodes, or I guess pretty much all of them, we recorded before the strike, so we're able to talk about work, talk about our connections, talk about, you know, get into more kind of specific stuff and stories and anecdotal things that we can't necessarily do here. And also just kind of get to know. Some people are actually, you know, friends of mine because I know them or work with them. Some people I get to, you know, meet, like Penn. And then not only do they get to talk about the causes that they care about, they also get to introduce whoever it is that is involved and doing the boots on the ground for the actual cause that they are involved in. And this gives a voice to people that really don't often get the microphone in front of them. And I'm fascinated both by what drives somebody who is rich and famous and doesn't need to do any of this, but also what makes someone choose a life that's so different than what I chose. You know, I chose a life to be self-involved and self-promotional and to, you know, get, you know, whatever, seen. Other people choose a life to do good.
I feel like this is maybe a nice segue into our last question.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've had a really nice run here.
Thank you,
Really-
Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thank you guys.
If you could go back to that 12-year-old,
Mhm.
is there anything you would say or do?
I would say, don't be afraid to ask for or take advice.
Mm.
You know, I did not ever either want or get I mean, I might have gotten, but if it came, I wasn't interested in hearing it. Advice. And because I thought, when I was 12, when I was 15, when I was 17, when I was, 20, that I knew everything, about how to act, about girls, about the world, about career, about the business. Even when it came to like agents, managers, I was like, I don't want to know from anything. So I think that's not a good way to approach life. There are people that have wisdom.
Yeah.
Experience, knowledge.
So how would you talk to 12-year-old Kevin and not have him tell you to fuck off?
I wouldn't. He would. He definitely would. And I don't know how I would talk to him. And no, I don't know. Because I think he would, but that's just who I was. That's who I was.
So then I'm going to, as graciously as I can, press you for one word of advice, which you will not give the world. You have been married for 35 years. You acknowledge yourself how difficult it is, yet you refuse to give advice and relinquish any wisdom. Will that change today?
No,
I mean,
listen. Here's my I don't know. You know what I mean? I'll tell you. There's a song that I wrote. Thank you very much.
Is it for Michael Jackson?
No. This was for the Bacon Brothers.
Okay.
There's a song called "Play," and it was kind of an answer to that question. And the reason that it's an answer to it is because everyone always says, marriage is a lot of work. You really got to work at it. It's a daily work. And when I hear that, I go, it's really about play.
Oh, I love that. That was perfect.
Yeah.
We got it. We did it.
We did it.
Got him to do it.
I go into a little bit more detail in the song.
Everyone
Kevin,
will
can
sure.
we play part of the song in this
this has
episode?
has all been like a long-term ad campain for this song.
There
And
you
we're
go.
gonna play.
You could-
We're gonna
by the
close the
Bacon
episode
Brothers.
out with this
And
song.
here it is, Play by the Bacon Brothers.
9 and 5, you got to hang with your lover when you're undercovers. If you want to get to it, just do it, don't do it halfway. Under the yellow moon, in every single room, if you don't want that thing to fade.
You can follow Kevin Bacon's philanthropic efforts at 6degrees.org, and you can follow him personally at Kevin Bacon. Penn, there's an indie artist called Matt Wirtz who has a song called Making Easy Things Hard. And I feel like your song would be like making short things long.
I like that.